Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you can hear me well. The theme of our today's webinar is Linux-based StarWind Virtual SAN, which is a free and simple way to achieve high availability for your application in your vSphere environments. So that's me, and today again we will discuss the Virtual SAN on Linux and how it can actually be installed in your vSphere environment. I'll show you a quick demo and we'll discuss new features and different deployment scenarios, and of course different options. Again, this agenda, of course, firstly we will discuss what's inside of the Linux-based StarWind Virtual SAN. Then I'll show you some feature set included in Linux-based StarWind Virtual SAN and compare it to Windows-based one. Then I'll show you a quick live demo, and at the end you're always welcome to ask any questions, and I hope I will cover everything needed. So actually, what's installed? Basically, Linux-based StarWind Virtual SAN comes as a pre-configured virtual machine with installed StarWind Virtual SAN, which is easy to deploy and configure. It is convenient in management, so you can use web client or thick client. It's really up to you how do you want to manage it. It does not require huge shell skills, so just deploy it. Type the IP in your browser. I'll show you how you can do it, and get started with work provision. Provision storage for the VM. Deploy some kind of RAID. It could be a software RAID or hardware RAID. Any type of storage actually could be used with Linux-based StarWind Virtual SAN. And that covers another part of this slide, that actually StarWind Virtual SAN on Linux does not require specific hardware. Basically, any hardware where you have ESXi installed, of course, you can deploy a virtual machine with StarWind easily of course, it comes as a pre-configured template. So let's jump to the feature set included into StarWind Virtual SAN. So first of all, as I've already covered, management is pretty easy. So web and thick clients can be used to configure to manage Virtual SAN on Linux. In addition, if you love PowerShell, you can use PowerShell. Additional shell utilities will be added to the Linux-based Virtual SAN in the future for the management. Right now, you can use web and thick clients and PowerShell from your local, for example, laptop. As for the features, other features such as caching, of course, RAM and flash cache included in both versions, both editions. As for StarWind virtual devices, Linux-based Virtual SAN includes image file, basic. You can see. I hope if you've ever worked with StarWind Virtual SAN, I think you've worked with image files. That's the core of StarWind product. And of course, based on the image file, you can create highly available devices, replicated ones. And another thing that, of course, Linux-based StarWind Virtual SAN includes VTL, and with VTL you can replicate your backups to cloud, many cloud you want in Azure, AWS, or Backblaze. The only thing, LSFS is not included in the Linux-based version. However, you can use any type of Linux application on top of StarWind devices. That another great options I like. Basically, Linux-based. Why I like it the most, because you can your choices. You have a variety of choice. So basically, you can use hardware RAID, you can use great software RAID solutions included into into Linux editions, into Linux distributions such as MD RAID or ZFS, for example. All of them can be used. It can be used and combined with StarWind Virtual SAN on top and shared via iSCSI or other protocols. As for replication, I've mentioned, so 2- and 3-way replication is included in Virtual SAN for Linux. VTL replication to cloud, of course. Again, another thing, hybrid cloud is a great option for you if you have only one server or you want to have a disaster recovery site in the cloud. That's pretty much great. Of course, you can build stretch clusters using a Linux-based Virtual SAN. So basically, that's pretty much the same thing as our Windows-based version can do. Another great thing, if you don't want and you're not Windows, your environment is not a Windows based, so basically you don't have strict Windows licensing, or you can live with only Linux in only Linux world. So that's a great thing that you can avoid a cost of Windows licenses and use. You just have to license StarWind or even use it free. So for free version, there would be some, I think, limitation with UI as we have it with the Windows-based version. Basically, licensing is the same. Okay, let's move on to a quick demo, and I'll show you actually how you work with it. So as a demo environment, I have a simple 2-node cluster with 2 Dell servers. Just let me show you which one I have over here. That's 2 Dell PowerEdge R620. The old one, I know, 12th generation, but we're still working with them. Yep. And of course, I've installed vSAN over here and 2 StarWind Virtual Storage Appliances, or as we call it right now, Linux-based StarWind Virtual SAN. Okay, so let me just show you how everything looks like. So I've installed and configured some highly available device, but let me log into the web console and we'll get started with the configuration. Okay, the IP address of the virtual machine is 2.1.143. So that's the port we should connect to. That's the login screen, and we're here. That's a small virtual machine CentOS based on the recent one. So as for the storage, I've configured one partition 50 GB size and created the StarWind HA disk on top of that. That's one on 47 GB over here, and I've just had some tests and created another one with 1 GB size. Of course, if we go over here on our cluster, HA is already configured. We will, okay, that's our data store. I've had another one. Let's delete this. Was for testing purposes. That's the one we have, 47 GB size. And I've installed this Windows virtual machine on top of this data store. Let's check a look. Yep, that's Windows Server 2016 virtual machine on top of StarWind highly available storage. So as usual, the virtual machine is highly available, and if you need high availability, that's the first thing. But if one of your hosts goes down, think we'll be able to simulate it right now. Everything, the virtual machine or all virtual machines that are protected by vCenter HA and StarWind HA will be migrated to another host. So a huge benefit of this setup that you can start with only 2 hosts and scale if needed in the future. So minimalistic HA setup can be easily achieved with only 2 hosts. So as a quick example, let me just jump into StarWind. For managing StarWind, myself, I prefer using thick console. That's just that's just what I love. So let's just remove this devices, and I'll show you actually how to create a new one. So just a quick thing. So let's again log into the open StarWind console, management console. Click add device. That's pretty much straightforward as you work with any StarWind server. Click next. Oh, choose the storage. That's the old folder. Of course, when you delete devices from management console, they are still on the data storage, just in case you've done that not on purpose. So I've deleted that. And that's basically pretty much easy. You can specify RAM cache size, desired flash cache, and everything is straightforward as you work with a simple StarWind Virtual SAN. Well, that's our storage device is a standalone one. Of course, we want to have a highly available one. The same thing. Let's create replica. The other host is this one. Just to be sure, let me show you it over here. That's the second VM 143. Let's jump back. Of course, as usual, you can choose failover strategies, hardbit. That's the old school hardbit failover strategy where you have a dedicated hardbit channel dedicated for hardbit purposes to communicate between 2 StarWind VMs. And node majority, that's the other failover strategy, which works as you have 2 storage nodes and the third node as a witness one, only it purpose only just to determine which of the hosts is up. So it just like a majority policy. I prefer using right now Harbit because I don't have a third node at the moment. Create new partner device. Same thing. Let me clean the mess from the old storage device. Yep. And create, choose synchronization and Harbit channels. Everything is as you work with usual StarWind Virtual SAN. And click create replica. That synchronization process will start shortly, and here we go. That's a small 1 GB device without cache. This one, for example, is 47 GB with 5 GB of write-back caching. Again, if we jump over here, oops, click rescan storages to find the recently created StarWind device. It will pop up in the storage devices menu. Just let's jump in. Couple seconds for the process to finish. That's our 1 GB device we've recently created. And that's the other one. As I've already told you, basically you can configure any type of RAID you want. So let me show you over here. Basically, if you have underlying RAID controller, as I have over here, I have pre-configured RAID and installed ESXi on the flash drive. Then you can just have multiple options, create a huge data store and work with it, put a StarWind virtual machine on top of that data store as I've done, and proceed with working. The other option, for example, you can pass through your RAID controller to the virtual machine with pre-configured array and put StarWind devices on that virtual drives from your RAID. That's another option. Of course, the other, and if you don't have RAID controller and only have an HBA adapter, you can pass through that one in ESXi to the StarWind virtual machine and configure a Software-MD RAID or ZFS. It depends on your workload. That's another great thing I like. And of course, we are preparing all the guides and videos for our clients so they can easily configure it, and our support department will be appreciated to help for the paid customers with configuration of every step in your vSphere deployment. Okay, that's pretty much a quick overview. That's the overview of our console, pretty much great and easy to use. As for the deployment itself, as I've told you already, it comes as a pre-configured and pre-deployed OVF template. Let me just, okay, here it is. The configuration process is pretty much the same. Right now we have a preview version of the document on our website, but the process remains the same. Just click deploy a VF template, find the local file, give it a name. Let's leave it as a default. Specify a data center location, choose a resource, let it be on the first server. Couple seconds. I'm sorry, that's the old 12th generation Dell servers there. Okay. Let's select storage. Don't have enough storage on HA data store, but I have enough on the local data store, and choose networks for all the purposes. Let me just come back and show you management, iSCSI, and synchronization as usual. Click next and finish. That's pretty much it about the deployment process. After the deployment, you're going to your vCenter console, or actually to the shell of your virtual machine, or if you have a DHCP server, go over there and find recently deployed virtual machine, just to figure out the IP address where you want to connect. Right now the deployment process is going on. If you maybe have some questions right now, I will be happy to answer them. Gentlemen, do you have any questions to discuss? Okay. While we were waiting, the virtual machine VSA virtual machine deployment process has been finished. After a quick refresh, we can boot it up. That's pretty much, as I've told you, CentOS 7.5. That's a login screen up to the shell. Push the. Oh, that's. Now I can see the questions. Just a quick second, I'll show you the login screen actually and what should be done next after the deployment. Oh, that's we're logging in via the IP. Yep, that's the IP that's the IP address needed. Okay, so the first question from the Anatol Lopez is regarding the VM minimal resources. Minimal resources are of the VM are 4 gigabytes of RAM, but I really recommend you to have at least 8. And let me just open the document for you. 4 cores per VM. Actually, the template is configured with the minimal resources VM needed. So for CPUs, 4 gigabytes of RAM, 1 hard disk is by default for the OS. Additional drives are for the StarWind devices. That's where you are going to store your StarWind virtual disks. Of course, the storage devices should be thick provisioned eGERD 0 if you're using virtual disks. If you're using RAID devices, the recommendations are the same as for the simple StarWind Virtual SAN. It depends on the RAID you're going to use, RAID level you're going to use. Minimum networking, I would recommend you to go with 10 gigabit Ethernet. However, you can go with 1 gigabit if your storage devices are not fast enough. As for the trial install on the hardware, Martin Chan, do you mean install Linux version on hardware? Could you please specify your questions? Another question about that recently that's the first version of VSA that was released last year was CentOS based. The Fedora edition, which you can right now download for our website, is the preview edition. And right now, the version I'm showing you over here on this session will be based on the CentOS. Basically, Fedora and CentOS versions are pretty much the same from the functionality perspective. However, as you may know, CentOS support is much longer for their editions that and for we actually prefer if you are going to put something in production Linux based, it should be supported. So CentOS edition should be released, I think, this month. I can't tell you exact date. As for the stability itself, of course, the recent one, the VSA 2.0, is much more stable comparing to the first version. And I have a production over here in my test lab, and I'm using it for a while. And actually, I would say right now I like it a little more than Windows 1. Another question: will our Linux-based Virtual SAN run on the KVM? We have this in plans, and that's another iteration. So it will be, I think, in the next release, KVM virtual machine support will be added. So we'll pre-build another VM for you. As for the asynchronous replication, right now it is not supported in the virtual Linux-based Virtual SAN. And as for another question, as for the raw disks, of course you can add a raw disk to the VM and use it as a storage, and put on top of the raw disk StarWind virtual devices and replicate those between the nodes. So basically, of course, that can be done. As for NPIV, I don't think we actually don't work with the fiber channel itself. I don't think it will be supported at any time soon. Yes. Let me jump in and reconfigure. We have some sort of things over here with our DHCP server. Just configuring quickly an IP address. Meanwhile, you can, if you have any additional questions, you can ask them right now. And I can see another one is regarding the what is recommended upgrade path for replacing the Fedora on the same ESXi host with the CentOS based VSA. Actually, the process, yep, that's the one you're telling. So basically, you can assign VMDKs where you already configured StarWind devices to the CentOS based virtual machine. That could be easily done, and I think that's another thing we will definitely add a configuration guide in the future. Yeah, you can connect old VMDKs from the Fedora virtual machines to the CentOS and just import the device to the new virtual machine. Yeah. Just sorry, configuring the IP address. We have some IP addressing conflict over here on this site. Sorry for a little. Yep, here we go. And yep. Thank you. I'm loving working at StarWind right now, and great to hear that you're loving work your work with our solution. Gentlemen, do you have any additional questions? And while you're thinking about your questions, I'll log into newly created StarWind Virtual Machine. It's really new one. As you can see, networking is only the IP addresses I've configured. These two network interfaces are going to be used for iSCSI and synchronization. Basically, that's it. To proceed, we will need just to add a virtual disk, format it, and create StarWind virtual disk on top of this disk. Okay, gentlemen, if you don't have any additional questions, thanks for attending the webinar. You can always ask any questions on our support forum. If you have a support package, our support team will definitely help you. And I think as soon as we will release the CentOS version of Linux-based Virtual SAN, you will get notified and you can get started with using it. This edition will be intended for vSphere users, as you may notice. So it is easy to deploy, quickly to use, easy to deploy solution, and you can always start with only 2 nodes. Again, thanks, gentlemen, and bye bye.